Mercedes has updated or refreshed the EQS, and there is one detail here that I like that they did with the new refresh. We're going to talk about the front end design, the side view, the rear, the interior, and what I think. I don't think the EQ series is selling well. I can't remember where I read that, but they're in this struggle to push EV, specifically Mercedes, and I do think that has a lot to do with the design of this car, because I don't think they're good looking cars. But before we jump into the design here, let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver and let's see what's new with the 2025 Mercedes EQS. So the Mercedes EQS electric luxury sedan gets a welcome improvement in range. It has these very good range right now, thanks to more battery capacity and updated regen braking. And the lightly refreshed model will begin arriving at dealerships later this year. The last EQS we put through our real-world 75 miles per hour highway fuel economy test. Car and Driver did that. It managed an impressive 350 miles. And now they say that Mercedes says that they've increased the range by 11%, meaning that the range should be closer to 390 miles, which is fantastic for any EV these days. And specifically, if you have a shape like this, like a computer mouse or a soap bar or a bean shape like this, you kind of would assume that it does have a great range. Mercedes also redesigned the front end of the EQS. The sea of Mercedes-Benz stars, for example, that we had in the grille are now gone, and we have a more traditional with these ribs, these chrome ribs in the grille, which I think looks better. The flat Mercedes-Benz crest has been replaced by the more traditional standing star hood ornament, and that is the detail that I think is a great little touch. Even though it's such a small little detail, but having this hood ornament sitting or standing up on top of the hood just makes it look more like a Mercedes, and specifically the S-Class. There's a lot of changes to the interior. So Mercedes introduced a series of changes focused on opulence and comfort for specifically the rear passengers. And here you can see just how far you can move the passenger front seat. So you can almost lean back entirely and have this be like a business or first class cabin in the back. The rear seat can lean back up to 38 degrees and allows the rear passenger to fold the front passenger seat forward for improved legroom. So that is the update. So not really a lot of updates when it comes to the styling, more so when it comes to the battery pack and the tech. So here we have the previous EQS. I think this was launched in 2021, I do believe. Time flies. It feels like just yesterday they unveiled the EQS. But here we have it. And this is in the AMG trim. So you have, I do think it says AMG there in the front end. Here you can see the big star in the front end as well now has moved up to be a just star up here, which I think looks a lot better, as I said, more clean. I do love these wheels though. Again, Mercedes and wheels, they just crush it with the wheel designs. And if you're gonna get an EQS, this is probably the spec that I would get it in, with this satin gray gunmetal finish to it and these big nice wheels, and also everything being blacked out except for a few bars here in the front end. Sort of like the Panamericana grille in the front for the EQS. Now looking at the new one here, you can see that the restyling happened mostly in the grille. There's not a lot of new design features. We still have this very sleek design, and what I don't like about the EQ series is that everything sits so flush. It looks so, faceless, the EQ series. And I do understand that they wanted to do that because of the range, but now that we have other EVs on the market that looks very boxy, for example, the Ioniq 5 is a very boxy design, still has a decent range, so they could have done a little bit better with this design. But Mercedes was also one of the first brands to really go hard on the EVs, and I do think that they wanted to make sure that the range was a priority, and that's why we ended up with this bean shape that we have in the front end. I do think the headlights are probably the exact same headlights that we have in the pre-facelift, but now we have the hood ornament up here on the grille, looking really cool. And I also kind of like this lower integration of the traditional Mercedes styling for the lower section underneath the bumper, if we can call this piece right here a bumper. I'm not entirely sure, but this lower section looks rather decent to me. We do have some intakes here. I do think these are active shutters down here for the battery cooling. Now looking at the side view here, and this is where it gets very problematic for me when it comes to the proportions of the EQS. and pretty much every single EQ car, because look at the wheelbase here. This is such an EV design because the wheels sit so far out, and then you have this big volume in the middle, which is the greenhouse, and this of course is going to create a lot of interior space. And this is what you can do with EVs. You can push the axles or the wheels further out to the end points of a car, but what that also creates is a very strange proportions that I'm not used to seeing. Not after, what is it, 4 years. It still looks very strange to me to have this type of proportions, but at least we do have one line in the car right here in the middle that then continues into, as you can see, into the bumper in the rear. So we do have some sort of connection from the side at least, wrapping around to the rear end. The wheels here, these are not the AMG wheels, but I do think they still look good for an EV. And then we have the new wheels down here with the new 2025 EQS. Again, not a lot of changes to the overall design. We still have this line in the body looking nice, cutting into the bumper, but now we also have this feature that Mercedes puts on pretty much every single car that they have, this cutout in the rear bumper. For some reason, even the C-Class, as you know, the base C-Class has that. I think that should be more of an AMG styling feature, but that's just me. But we still have the same bean or computer mouse proportions here. Of course, you're not going to change that for a small little facelift. Now, looking at the rear end, I don't think there's any changes to the rear end. And here you can see, without the AMG package on the old one, pre-facelift, you don't have this cutout in the rear bumper, but you do have that on the AMG package, this being, as you can see, the EQS 53 AMG. We also have a bit of a more, maybe not actually, I'm not sure if this is a more aggressive diffuser. It looks to be the exact same diffuser like we have in the new 2025 non-AMG coming back here in the 2021, because all the fins are intact here, 3 fins. We have 3 fins down here at the bottom as well on the non-AMG. We also have these taillights. Again, everything sits so flat. There's not a single chamfer on this car, and it looks like it doesn't have any sort of identity. In addition to that, all of this is very organic and rounded. Everything has a curvature to it, looking very bubbly and undefined for a Mercedes. And I do think that has to do with the reason why the EQ series is not selling well these days. Now, last but not least, the interior, and we do have this, I can't remember what it's called, like the super screen or something like that, where you have a big, everything is just a massive glass panel for the entire interior. Everything is just one big pane of glass with 3 separate screens, one in the middle for the infotainment, one for the passenger to do whatever they want. I think maybe they've implemented TikTok in the EQS as well, like they did in the E-Class. And then you have the gauge cluster as well. The good news here, if you look at the both of these, both the refresh and the previous one, you do have a housing for the gauge cluster. So that is a positive from me. I do think this area, if we just cut it right here and look to the left where the driver is sitting, this area looks really good. I think this is a nice interior for the EQS. I'm not a fan of this mega screen that we have going on here, even though you could argue that this is a little bit better integrated than just having a static flat rectangle on the dash. This feels maybe a little bit better integrated than that, but it's still very cold and clinical, and it's not somewhere that I would like to sit for a very long time, because there's so much light and pixels going on right in my face that I don't want to see. I'd rather have, as you know, more analog features than this. But at least we do have a climate setting down here that is static, that is always going to be at the bottom of the screen, so it's easily accessible to do whatever you want with the cooled and heated seats and the temperature and the fan speed and so on. So overall, I'm not sure if this is going to increase the sales for Mercedes with the EQS, but at least they went back just one tiny step backwards to a more traditional front face with the ornament now sitting on top of the hood.